All right, you are live.
I'd like to welcome commissioners and guests to our meeting this evening of the Annapolis Human Relations Commission. Call the meeting to order and observe that there is a quorum of commissioners present this evening. First item of business is the approval of the minutes for our October meeting. Those minutes were provided to you electronically. Are there any additions or corrections to the October minutes? Hearing none, the minutes shall stand approved by common consent. I'd also like to welcome Commissioner Hatch, who has joined us. I'll let the call on Claudia Barber to give us a staff liaison report. Do you have anything this evening you'd like to share with the commission?
Yes, I do.
Okay.
I'd like to share as part of the staff liaison report that at our last meeting, we requested some matters from the Annapolis Police Department on the issue of the potential hate crime involving motorcyclists that were meeting up and
Right.
racial slurs that were hurled. We wanted to see that incident report. And Captain Amy McGuinness did respond to our request. And I provided that information to the commission chair and circulated. I also believe among some other commissioners that and everyone, I guess, would eventually have the opportunity to review. But that would conclude my staff liaison activities over the past 30 days. Thanks.
Okay, thank you, Claudia. And my congratulations for getting that information from the police. That's extremely valuable for us to have that. It sets a good precedent for us to ask for reports such as these when they become something that could end up in our domain in terms of investigations. The only report that I have this evening is to thank Madeline Horrell for handling the Zoom technology for this evening. She works for the City of Annapolis TV. That's extremely helpful to have someone who knows how to go through the various aspects of Zoom. So I know you're in the background there, Madeline, but thank you very much for that assistance. For under our new business that we have this evening, I'm going to go through it in the order in which they're listed here. The first item of new business is strategizing on whether there is any meaningful action the commission can take with respect to complaints about conditions in the city's public housing facilities. And I would mention that Commissioner Monday sent out a news release that the City of Annapolis is coming up with a sizable sum of money to help with the improvements and renovations of the properties in the city of Annapolis. I haven't had a chance, Linda, to read your Furl article that you sent to us, but I did capture the headlines, and it seemed like it was really good, a good act. And also, I think that it speaks to the fact that the commission did send to the mayor and to the city council a pretty strongly worded statement urging that some action be taken now in terms of improving the facilities. And I'm saying that we're responsible for the city's action on this, but I'm certain that we didn't hurt the case. Linda, would you like to talk a little bit more about that that article that you sent to us?
I mean, I think the only thing I can add is that I had mentioned to Dewan Gay that somebody in Eastport had reached out to me to potentially file a complaint about some issues that they were having. And then he told me that they were giving $500,000 to HACA for repairs. So it was him really behind it. So that's all I can add. I don't know that we really had any influence there because that's been his stance for a while, as far as I know.
Well, given that they've taken this action, is there anything, again, the question is whether there was any meaningful action on behalf of the commission. Is there anything else that we really need to do at this juncture? What we basically told in our email to the mayor and to city council, we basically stated, and I've got that statement here. We basically, stated that we were going to back the lawsuit filed by the residents, unless the city took some action on this, or there were some kind of ways of providing repairs. So are we really now in sort of a wait and see situation, see where things go from here, or is there anything that we can do? Again, the key is meaningful action. So thoughts about that from the commissioners?
Mike, it's Chuck. A question for you and Linda. I think as I read the report, and thanks Linda for getting that for us. Press report about the $500,000, which is a major step in the right direction. As I remember, part of the wording indicated that the properties were owned by HACA in conjunction with HUD. And that confused me some. Does the city actually own any of the housing authority properties?
No.
I thought so, yeah.
It's totally, HACA and the city are completely separate.
Okay, I thought so, but I wanted just to clarify that to myself and others.
So the city's doing them a favor, basically.
Well, but I think that's great, and well,
people are
good on you for
complaining
keeping
about
on it. Yeah.
I mean, I don't really feel like there's anything meaningful we can do in answer to your question at this point. I mean, honestly, I feel like if we really wanted to make an effort here, we still have a lot of learning to do and we need
Right.
to keep up with all this, and we're just not doing that. So I would be curious to hear from Joshua, who I know had a complaint as well with the commission, and he talked about that offline a little bit. But if there's anything that you want to add here, because you know more about this than I do, for sure.
Well, thank you, Commissioner Monday. I actually I'm en route somewhere right now, but that's the reason why I have my camera off. But I do have a comment that I'd like to make. It's really disappointing. We have to watch, I think, what we say when we encourage people. And I think this goes back to something that you had said originally about, not wanting to bring residents forward because out of the fear that, after they come forward, nothing would be done. I can honestly attest to that taking place with me. I brought a complaint to the commission and absolutely nothing was done. And so I think that you're right. We have a lot of learning that we need to do, and we really need to know exactly what is in our bounds and authority when it comes to complaints that are filed by residents, because for me, it was disheartening to file a complaint, not even receive a telephone call, And I'm on the commission myself. So for a resident to have to go through that, it's purely a waste of time. And I'm sorry for being so blunt tonight, but you know, that's the reality. It's a waste of time.
Thank you for that. Mike, do you know anything about what happened with the complaint, and where it ended up?
I can report this. I definitely responded to it by notifying both Joshua as well as the was was the place you were living, was it called Annapolis Gardens? Is that correct?
And that's correct.
Okay.
Annapolis Gardens.
Yeah. Okay. I spoke
I,
with I spoke with the manager from Annapolis Gardens, and the manager said you need to go to our regional vice president. And I actually wrote her a letter saying, and I shared with her the letter which and complaint which Commissioner Hatch had given me. And I then stated, look forward to hearing from you. We offered that the matter could be mediated, and the such. And following that, there was a date in which I asked for a response. We got no response from them at all. And so I contacted Commissioner Hatch about that, and he said that he had moved. And so that effectively put an end to my efforts at that point. This was, this was really a landlord-tenant complaint. So it didn't fall under the commission's authority in the area of fair housing. To our authority in this case was simply limited to trying to arrange a mediation between the two parties or some kind of an agreement. But in this case, the regional management of Annapolis Gardens has simply refused to even acknowledge the complaint was filed. Additional phone calls made to them were not returned. And once Commissioner Hatch had left those properties, that effectively ended the complaint. So again, I'm sorry, Joshua, that happened, and this is one of those situations where I'm not sure what additional action that the commission could have taken in this situation, especially since you had left. If you'd still been there, there is something that would have happened.
But I think again, as you know, we talked about this before, and that was one of the concerns that was raised, Mike, about residents coming forward. What actually can the commission do about those type of complaints where people are saying there's mold growing inside of their units, where they're living in conditions that are not, the best conditions or healthy for them and their children. What actually can the commission do? You said the landlord refused to mediate. They were unwilling to do so. So,
well, they never responded to me. I mean, they didn't respond to the letter I sent. They didn't respond to follow-up telephone calls. And it all went to the person I was told to contact by the management. And that was the person who represented the regional office. And I have the name of the person. I wrote to her, included her name, sent it to them, called her, couldn't get her on the phone. So to answer your question, what could have been done? If you'd still been living there, I probably would have looked into the possibility of speaking with a real estate commission about it. But
I'm not living there, but there are other people that are living there. that are living in those same conditions. And I'm sure if we were to go and ask them, and we've been down this road before, I'm just saying that I don't think the efforts of the commission should stop because I no longer live there. I think that we have a serious problem on our hands. And if the commission wants to be involved in it, then great. If not, we should move on because I mean it's again, it's really upsetting to people who live in those conditions to constantly, repeatedly have to speak about something and nothing's done about it.
Well, the only thing I guess I could add to that is in a situation like this, if we do receive complaints, we will follow up on them. And, we'll do what we can within the limits that we have within our authority. In this case, I'm not sure what the Real Estate Commission would have offered in this circumstance. But if we do get a complaint, I will, and the commission will follow up on it.
Well, let me ask you this. What I hear you saying is that if we receive a complaint, that what we could do is follow up with the real estate commission. Why not have the real estate commission come and speak to us and let us hear from them about what their authority is in matters like these? Because they exist and we need to know exactly or provide information to residents of what to do in matters like this and not sit around and twiddle our thumbs and wait for somebody to step forward. Okay, if you step forward, here's some information that may be helpful to you at the very least. That's a part of the outreach mechanism of the commission.
That's a good suggestion,
Yeah,
and I will follow up on that. We'll see if we can get someone to come to our December meeting to
I agree,
talk
Josh.
about that.
Good suggestion.
That's a really, really good suggestion.
Is the Real Estate Commission a commission of the city of Annapolis or?
No,
Okay.
no, it's a whole separate body.
And Mike, when you do the follow up and put letters out and all that, do you copy somebody in the city of Annapolis? Like, are you providing a paper trail as the commission?
Usually I'll send it to, generally speaking, send it to both the staff liaison as well as to the vice chair of the commission. I didn't in this case send it to you, Joshua, because it was an unusual situation in which you were a commissioner and a complaint provider. But I definitely have the correspondence, which I sent to the regional vice president. I definitely have that documentation.
Well, I appreciate you doing that. But I think that the residents of the city of Annapolis would appreciate us to find if no one will step forward, out of fear of what I experienced. I don't blame them at all whatsoever. And so I think the next best thing is for us to evaluate if a person was to step forward, what information we could provide them immediately upon coming to the commission if we do not have the power and authority to address the matter.
Well, again, we'll follow up. I'll ask the real estate commission if they would speak to us. I'm not sure that I'm not certain that this is something that they would necessarily get involved with. But I think we can certainly have someone here to give an overview as to what kinds of services and functions they provide. So I think that's really, would be the next best step here, and that would educate us. But in the case of your specific complaint, the fact that you left the property and were no longer there would have created a difficult situation for us to go forward. But that doesn't necessarily mean that's how we would do it in the future.
Well, I'll tell you what, and I'll leave it after I say this. I've got about 5 people over there that are willing to file complaints with the commission, but are unwilling to do so
Right.
unless the commission can provide some type of parameters of what they can or what we can do once they file a complaint. Because when they do that, they're essentially putting themselves out there in hopes that something will be done. And if nothing is done, what has been done is they've painted a target on their back.
Okay, let me just ask for some of the others who are on the call, specifically Carrie Berger, who represents the Office of Law, Tricia from the Office of Human Resources, and also Claudia from the Office of Human Resources. Are you familiar with the Real Estate Commission? And if so, do you think that landlord-tenant disputes would be something that they would engage in?
So I'm not familiar with the Real Estate Commission, and so I can't answer that question, but I may be able to provide some insight that might be able to assist the commission and residents who may be looking to file a complaint. There is a section of the city code that outlines the process for filing a fair housing complaint and what the commission's responsibilities are associated with that. And so basically, if there were an individual to file a complaint, it has to be under oath or affirmation. And then it's a full investigation that's done by the commission. And then determinations can be made with the understanding that confidentiality is kept to the extent that it can be kept. And then if, things can be done, that's great. If things can't be done, then there's alternate avenues that can be taken, including criminal prosecution, of course, that involves the state's attorney's office. But if you were to look at chapter 11.32 of the code, and then going down to section 11.32060, that provides sort of that step-by-step process that occurs when someone makes a complaint.
Okay.
That might be helpful information.
But Carrie, you indicated that it's under the Fair Housing Code. Is unsafe and unhealthy conditions considered part of the Fair Housing Code?
So basically what you guys would be tasked with doing is looking at that complaint and determining whether or not it falls into the list of prohibited conduct that's also under that same chapter, and make a determination based on that.
Do you happen to have that in front of you, what the prohibited conditions would be?
Yeah, it would be under chapter 11.32 has all of the fair housing, and then under 11.32030.030 is the unlawful housing practices. And that's got your list of I don't want to say criteria, but that's what is considered a unlawful housing practice. And it's a pretty lengthy list.
But does it involve health and safety and patterns of that?
I would have to take a deeper look at it.
Okay.
And let you know. I'm certainly happy to do that. I just don't want to say
I
something right now.
certainly Mike asked that we have that.
Yeah, I can send you guys an email with the code provisions and provide some specificity as to what you're asking.
Yeah, that would be extremely helpful if you could do that, Carrie.
Sure.
Because I was just operating under the assumption that, fair housing would basically mean that you can't be discriminated against in terms of housing. That's not clear to me, or at least hasn't been clear to me, that it would involve a health and safety issue. But by looking at the code, then that would make a very, very big difference in the case which Commissioner Hatch had, or anyone else. If it's deemed a fair housing violation to have involve health and safety, we do have significant authority in the area of fair housing.
So let me put it this way. One of the unlawful housing practices is to discriminate in the furnishing of any facilities, repairs, improvements, or services in the terms, conditions, privileges, or tenure of occupancy of a housing unit. So take that as you will. I think that one is one that you could make the argument that it would apply to what you're discussing.
But isn't that related to discrimination? If for example, white folks would be treated differently than others, is that what it says, or does it say?
Yes, of course. There's the protected factors and I didn't list those off, but those are listed as well.
But
I'm saying all this not knowing what the basis of the complaint was, so I don't want to assume that there's.
Well, the complaint is mold, which is a pattern all over the city. I mean, it's on its face, it's unhealthy and unsafe. would those provisions cover that, absent the issue of racial discrimination?
Okay, I'll take a deeper look at the code section
Great.
and give you a definitive answer. I don't want to say the wrong thing.
Okay, that's fine.
Yeah.
That's fine.
Yeah. If there's any doubt in my mind at all, I'll ask for an advisory opinion from the Office of Law before we proceed
Okay.
on this. That would be absolutely necessary to claim, authority and then
Right.
later find out that the legal authorities of the city don't agree with us. But we'll definitely follow up on that. And once we have that, and once we hear, for example, from the Real Estate Commission as to what they're willing and not willing to do, we can follow up on that. So,
And if they could come speak to us, I think Josh's suggestion on that is good.
yeah,
Yeah, Mike, are you talking about the Association of Realtors? Is that, because I'm Googling
That's different.
and I'm not seeing anything what you're referring to. The
Maryland-
Real Estate Commission of Anne Arundel. What exactly is the organization you're talking about?
there is some organization called the Real Estate Commission because we have it described in our brochure. I don't know if it's the Association of Realtors, but I'm not.
Oh, is it
Maryland.
the state of Maryland? It's the state of Maryland, it
Yeah.
looks like.
Oh, yeah,
Real
it's a state entity.
Okay, gotcha, okay. All right, well, yeah, we
They
should look
actually-
and see.
they
And do they get
actually-
involved in subsidized housing? Because that's what Annapolis Gardens is. So that's the other question too, right? We need to find out about regular rental, subsidized housing. And then, of course, we know some of the HACA stuff. We know how the city feels about that, so.
Okay.
I'd say Claudia was attempting to weigh in on that, but I
Sorry.
can't see where she went.
I'm here. I'm here. I just
Oh, there
wanted
we go.
largely the Maryland State Real Estate Commission
Yeah,
is a regulatory agency for licensed realtors and brokers. So oftentimes they're seen as a regulatory commission that oversees the removal, suspension, et cetera, of real estate agents and brokers for violation of real estate laws. So yeah, we would have to learn and dig deeper as to what their capacity is for tenant matters.
Yeah, and I think you're going to have to make a distinction in that between what's privately owned and what is
right.
HACA property. So that's part of the educational consideration here for you as a commission. Is over what entities would they really have an ability to weigh in? And then absent that, when you're talking about HACA properties, are you then having to interact with HUD? Where's your nexus with that?
Well, but first we need to know what the law is of the fair.
That would be
Yeah,
helpful.
right. That's, yeah, what,
That would be helpful.
yeah.
Yeah. So, the next steps on this is going to be to examine the law on this, and then secondly, contact the Real Estate Commission. And did you just ask them to come to speak to us? We don't have to tell them, give them all the details. We can have them come and talk a little bit about what they do, and then we can address other things during the question and answer time.
Okay.
And once we've had a chance to review the law, then what I may do is ask for an advisory opinion from the city attorney as to whether complaints based on health and safety issues of residential properties in Annapolis are covered under the city's fair housing ordinance. And if the answer comes back yes, then that would enable us, I think, to provide to the tenants, not formally in writing, but certainly would open the door that we could engage in a more vigorous response if there's a complaint. And that would respond to Commissioner Hatch's point. I'm happy to talk with these folks, but they want to know that something's going to happen. So,
Mike, can I make a recommendation though, Mike?
sure.
I think that you can do both of those things like simultaneously. You can ask the real estate commission to come do a presentation, but you can also ask the Office of Law for opinion or a written opinion
I
about
agree.
the interpretation of the law, and not let's stop taking baby steps towards this issue, and let's start taking some giant leaps.
Oh, I fully agree with you, and that was my intention. I didn't intend to just sit on something until we heard a presentation. But I would have a desire to certainly have the issue of the legality of the commission acting in this way done before we brought the real estate commission in. But we can do much of this all at the same time. This can be examined easily within the next 30 days.
So I just, this may eliminate the need to get an opinion from my office because I just reviewed the code provisions. And it does say based on protected classes, that's so if someone is making a complaint about, a health and safety issue and they believe it's related to a protected class, I believe then the commission can take action. But if it's not related to a protective class, then you guys would not be able to take the actions that are outlined in the code.
But isn't race a protected class, Curry?
Yes, it is.
Okay, then sounds like
I think that we almost need that in the complaint to act on
Correct.
it. Like I don't believe that was in the complaint itself.
Yeah,
I
it
think that
wasn't.
makes sense. I mean, if it's just a housing, and I'm not trying to make light of it in any way, but if it says it's a housing issue, but it's not based off of because I am, whatever, I am black, I am whatever the thing is, and they are not repairing this issue, then we have an action that we can act on, if I'm understanding correctly. And
You're
that might be
absolutely
the
right.
nuance or the difference. Is that right?
Yes, you're absolutely right. You would have to have some indicator in the complaint that kind of is like sort of a, for lack of a better term, trigger word to act, to propel you guys into action. And it would have to be a mention of what they believe the discrimination was based on and it being related to a protected factor.
Okay, having understood that now, completely understand, what then or who then does the commission turn to when individuals are asserting that they have improper housing conditions that they're living in? Who does have the power and authority to take on a complaint like that? If it's not guarded by, them saying, it's because I'm black or protected class, as you all just said. Because I think that's the important thing, because we keep on dancing around as to why something can't be done. Okay, so who has the authority then? Who does a person file a complaint with, even if it's just for the sake of it being a paper trail, saying that this particular housing complex had these many complaints against them about the same issue and nothing is being done? Who does the complaint go to? Everybody don't answer at once.
No, I think that,
I don't think we know the answer.
yeah,
I mean,
yeah. I mean, that might be another good reason to bring the real estate commission before us and to see what thoughts that they may have. In the situation that involved your specific complaint, there was action taken. There was a letter sent to the regional vice president. Regional vice president has refused to respond. What more can you do? So it comes down to a landlord tenant issue. So unless there's something in the law that would allow us to take further steps in the matter, I'm not sure what more can be done.
I mean, I think some of these issues are what was examined or may have been told to us, that I think from Lyles in the Office of Law as to what some of the issues are here. I somewhat wonder, Joshua, and maybe you're able to answer this, maybe you're not, but in terms of if Haka or the private owner is out of funds and they aren't repairing or making the repairs because of funding, do you believe that the amount of money that has been, I guess, transferred from the city of Annapolis to Haka will help with any of the repairs that need to be completed?
Mm-mm.
I hate to say this, but I'm willing to admit I don't know.
So, but the thing to remember is Annapolis Gardens is not a HACA property. It is
That's right.
privately owned now. It used to be. So, and so what's happening with the HACA properties is they're redeveloping them and trying to make them all private owned, right? Because HUD's getting out of public housing. So there's HACA properties, which you can go to the HACA website and see where they are, Eastport Terrace, uh, Harbor House, right? So you can go to the website and see where they are. And then there's the other ones that are not HACA properties anymore. They were transitioning out. So two different things.
Okay.
And then but the other question that I have too is just, right, people that have rental houses or rental apartments in the city of Annapolis that aren't subsidized housing, aren't HACA properties, but are renting as well. So to me, there's three different types of renting that I know of in Annapolis. And I think I would be really interested to hear, how do we support residents on any of these issues as we can.
Okay, I would really like to sort of move us along. I think on this issue, I would like to contact the Real Estate Commission just to have them come and talk to us, and we can explore with them how or what possible assistance they can provide if you're dealing with a situation such as Joshua faced, where he had a mold condition and the owners of the property or the managers anyway were just not responsive.
Mike, when I'm looking at the website now, the Real Estate Commission, and it seems to be 100% on licensing.
Okay.
And so I would prefer that we ask for a legal opinion from the Office of Law as to what the commission's authority would be for protected classes to investigate patterns of health and safety that they are subject to.
I just kind of gave you that opinion.
Yeah.
Well, but you essentially
Yes, you
said if the person is in a protected class, yes, the commission would have authority to investigate and report. Is that right?
Yes, if their complaint is they believe that there's some sort of discrimination based on their protected class. So if there was a complaint to say that, I've had all of these complaints and they've gone unaddressed, and I believe that they've gone unaddressed because of my race or because of my gender, that would allow you guys to then take action. But if it's just a general, I've been making these requests for improvements or for remediation of certain things, and it has not been addressed by the management, you guys can still act by, trying to maybe mediate or whatever, but you don't have the legal authority to take some action like injunctive relief and potential prosecution if they do not participate.
Is it limited to race, or is poverty also a protected class?
That is not a protected class.
Okay.
But a person's race is, right? And I hate to keep going through this, but I'm doing this for.
So I'll read you guys what it says, because it does say source of income. So it says, and this is just one, but this is pretty standard with all the other ones. It's because of race, color, religion, disability, familial status, sexual orientation, gender identity, marital status, sex, source of income, immigration status, citizenship status, or national origin.
But you would have to make the ties between the protective category and the action that's being complained about. That's you have to have that nexus. And so, you know, if you filed a fair housing complaint and try to make it a fair housing complaint, the other party could come back and say, well, prove to us that, you know, this action was specifically tied to the race of the individual. And their attorneys would make that argument. They would say, you've got no jurisdiction here. This had nothing to do with race, had nothing to do with gender, had nothing to do with whatever. You've got
Right,
to
but-
tie it to the protective category.
Well, the source of income is interesting and does work especially for subsidized housing, because that source of income is about where the rent is being paid from, right? And we know that people do get discriminated against when they apply for subsidized housing because of that discrimination. A landlord would rather, you know, have just a regular check, or they have judgments on people that are in subsidized housing programs. So that source of income, and again, you know, if there's 5 people that Joshua can identify and they all have the same pattern, then there potentially is a case there. I mean, of course, they're going to argue it, but that's not our problem. Our problem is, do we support the residents or not?
Okay, and in this situation, if we do receive any additional complaints, we have no complaint that is currently before us. We have no complaint that's currently before us. If we get a complaint before us, then we can investigate, depending on what the person writes in the complaint, whether or not it would be something that could be dealt with through the fair housing, the city's fair housing code. So that's, I think, where we're right now. We don't have a case before us. If we get a case before us, then this discussion has been extremely helpful, because it provides I think, a guidepost for us in terms of how to proceed, in terms of whether or not we're able to tie it to the fair housing statute. And if we can't, then the process we use is the one that I used in this case, and that was to touch base with the management of Annapolis Gardens. And in this case, the management simply refused to respond. So if we get a complaint before us, this is an additional step. We will do an investigation within the commission to determine whether the specific complaint that was filed, complaint or complaints, can be tied to the protected classifications. And I fully agree with the judgment which Carrie Berger has provided us. I think she's absolutely right in terms of what we need to do. We don't have to go back to the city attorney again.
Mike, can I ask you a quick question? And that is that so a complaint that comes in would come before the complaints committee. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Oh, okay. All right.
The only problem, yeah, the answer is yes, you're correct. Okay, I would like to move us along. We've got a number of other items on the agenda. I think this has been a good educational session, and I really appreciate Commissioner Hatch bringing this before us for discussion, because I think it's very informative. The next item on the new business is basically a follow-up from our meeting last month with the folks from the county office on equity and human rights. And specifically, they're hiring a person who would be designed to look into actions that can be taken with response to hate crimes and bias incidents. And as I say in item B, it says strategizing on how the commission can assist the Anne Arundel County Office of Equity and Human Rights with its efforts against hate crimes and bias incidents. And you'll recall that the individual who was hired for the purpose of doing that for the county, as well as the assistant director of that office, were very interested in having the commission involved in that. So what I would like to do is have a discussion, and any ideas the commission has about how we can work collaboratively with the folks from the County Office of Equity and Human Rights. Any ideas on this?
I mean, I think that last when they presented last time, they basically said they would come back to us and let us know how they want us to work with them. Is that correct? Because they were still just kind of setting up and brand new to the whole thing.
Yes, yes, they did say that.
I mean, I definitely think if we have some ideas as to what we would like to see included in their plan, right? And maybe they could work with us on um talking, maybe they could also take a look at what the city of Annapolis police are not doing in comparison to Anne Arundel police. I know we've talked about, we'd love to see a dashboard like Anne Arundel has. And then, you know, maybe they could look at what is Anne Arundel police doing when they have hate crimes with the HR commission, and maybe put together some suggested processes.
Yes, that's a very good suggestion, Linda. Well, I think this is sort of going to be an open book. I think as you said, it would probably behoove us to sort of wait for them to get back to us in terms of what they would like us to do. And so far that hasn't happened. But I think the idea that you just came up with respect to comparing what the county does, what the city does with respect to hate crimes in specific, I think that would be good. I think that the one thing that we can do mostly with them is to basically serve as the representatives of the city in the actions that they take for the county. And so that there isn't an inconsistency with the two governmental entities in terms of what's being done on this, that they're proceeding in basically the same direction. Does that make sense? Chuck?
Yeah, I think that's what we're left with until we find out what their priorities are and what they intend to do about them. And it would be hard to identify what we can do to help.
Chairman, Keller. Hi, Lakeisha
Oh,
Hatcher
yeah.
here. So I know that one of their tiers was engagement. And I do recall them presenting to you all as well, to the county human relations, as to how can we help them with engaging the community, doing outreach. I think one of the homework assignments was maybe coming up what events is scheduled to happen that we can participate to help spread, education and information. So engagement into the community was definitely something that we could probably start preparing to do.
I agree with that, but again, particularly based on what Josh has said, before we advertise that we are going to go out and get people to participate in a new initiative on racial issues, we ought to have a pretty good idea of what they can do, of what it is that they intend to follow through on, because awareness in itself can be frustrating if there aren't meaningful actions taken at the end.
Oh, no, I totally understand.
Yeah, I know.
I'm not trying to jump the gun, but I think it was more of maybe having an idea as to how can we engage, if there's, events or anything that is community-based that we could participate in. That's all.
Okay.
I might mention that Lakeisha is the representative to our commission from the Human Relations Commission of Anne Arundel County.
Right.
Really appreciate having you join us, Lakeisha.
Welcome.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Thank you for allowing me.
Okay. All right. I think we've got some good ideas in terms of how we're proceeding on that.
Well, we didn't really talk about any ideas that we have for outreach events that we could recommend to them. And I mean, the first thing I thought of was um, that maybe they should reach out to the community services group team for the city of Annapolis, because they plan a lot of local events. And I believe there's an African American coordinator and a Hispanic outreach coordinator. So that may be a good place to start too.
Good idea.
Reach out to them. I mean, and as far as events go, they probably would know the best events too. But I mean, obviously the events I think of are like Annapolis Pride, Juneteenth are two big celebrations, the Conte Kente Festival. And there may be religious, and there's obviously all the religious organizations, because remember, it's hate crimes that they're addressing. So it's not just about race. So, and then I guess just the Annapolis religious organizations, faith organizations.
Right. I think if that is right on point there, if we can have a list of potential events, at least that gives them something that
Right.
they can walk away with as how we
Yeah.
could help participate. Right on point.
And another one might be Anne Arundel Connecting Together is a faith organization in Anne Arundel County that organizes with individual faith groups. And so I think they have about 18 faith groups that they organize with. So it would be good to reach out to them just to get the information out, right? Once they have it kind of established.
Mm-hmm. Okay, any other ideas on this? Okay, I'd like to go to the next item, which is C, is an update on responses to the racist attack in Annapolis that was aimed at the Prince George's County Cycling Club. And just to give you just a brief overview of this, and then I'm going to ask Chuck Hurley to talk a little bit about it, is that there was a serious incident at the end of June in Annapolis when members of a cycling club in Prince George's County were subjected to physical attacks by a group of individuals who were in a vehicle. It went beyond just a bias incident because there were things that were thrown and the like. I asked Commissioner Hurley to look into it and see what specific role the commission might play in this. And I know he wrote a letter to the mayor about this and to I think to the police chief and one other individual. And could you and I'll just mention one other thing is that there was an event in August that the mayor participated in. So Chuck, could you elaborate on this?
Yes, everything you said is right, Mike. Behalf of the commission wrote to the mayor, the police chief, also to Rhonda Pendle-Charles, who chairs the city committee on public safety.
That's right.
And I spoke at length with her afterwards. And she told me that Will Rowell is the designated person to lead the city's effort. The mayor also had already done the right thing by inviting the group back. And it's the name of it, it's the youth program of a major mega church in Prince George's County. I'm blanking on the name. Is it Second Baptist Church? And it's may have 10,000 members. Okay, sorry. Say again, Josh.
First Baptist Church of Glenarden.
Okay, in Glenarden, exactly. And the mayor invited them back, accompanied them in a ride in August. And I think the the ice cream place that starts with a K, can't remember the base of Main Street, offered free ice cream to these cyclists, which is the right kind of spirit and tone. But I was able to talk to Will Rao this week. He had hoped to be able to join us tonight. Mike sent him a formal invitation for the committee and with the link to the Zoom, and apparently he wasn't able to make it. He indicated to me that he would very much like for the commission to take the lead on a proclamation on these matters, and I said that would be terrific. I bet we would. I bet most of the commissioners would be delighted with that. And he was going to come tonight to talk about how that might take place. I'll get back in touch with him again. Hopefully, he can be with us at the December meeting.
Chuck, I've got a question.
Sure.
You also wrote to the chief of police on this. And again, we have received a police report. That was one thing we wanted. We did get a police report.
I haven't seen, yeah, if Claudia or you, Mike, could send it to me. I haven't seen that report. And the question really is there investigation underway? We don't want to interfere with that if there is, because, I would hope if they can, the charges would be made if it's warranted by the evidence.
Well, I believe I do have the document which Claudia sent to me.
Right.
I can forward it on.
That'd be great. Maybe the other commissioners would be interested as well. But one of the problems initially, the first officer to respond was an officer of the Naval Academy, that is the Naval Academy Police unit, and so there was some delay in actually getting it properly filed with the city. And that delayed things. Glad the mayor didn't wait for that and just invited them, or invited himself, or was invited to participate in their later ride. But yeah, I would love to see that report, Mike.
Yeah.
Chuck,
well,
I think you'd already received the report. I thought you responded to it.
Not that I know of, Jake.
It was sent to all of us on October 18th. I think you had responded saying that you were thanking us for getting it, and you were going to follow up with Will regarding it. Was that a different report?
I should have done that then, because I don't remember receiving it, but I had a good conversation with Will, but we didn't get that far because he was going to come tonight. Okay. And I will follow up with him this week on that matter. Thanks, Jay.
Yeah, at this point, I think it would be especially important to follow up with Will in terms of what he and the mayor are doing in terms of moving the investigation along, because this was a serious offense.
Right, and he is the right guy. I think holds several titles with the city. For years has been the senior advisor to the mayor on a range of issues, and he also, I think, has a senior role in the city Department of Transportation on the bike ped issues. So he's the right guy, and I will follow up, Jay, once I dig that report out. October 18th was the when we got the email. I'll follow up in my emails. Okay, thanks.
Yeah, thank you also, Jay, for remembering that. I do remember having received it, but I didn't really look to see where I've forgotten as to who it was sent to.
Right. We're all drowning in all of the emails right now, but I will follow up on that.
Yeah, thank you, Chuck. I think it's important that we'll recognize that there needs to be some closure brought to this in terms of their investigation.
And I think it goes beyond the proclamation issue, but best to hear that from him.
Yeah, I think you can certainly share with Will that if there's incidents in the city, the commission will follow up on it, just as I asked you to follow up on this. If there's any kind of hate crime or bias incident, we'll have some role in that. And if, for example, there's a desire by the mayor's office that we issue a proclamation, and it's something that's timely. In other words, we say there's something that happened 2 days ago, and we think a statement by the commission would be helpful. We'll definitely do that. But we don't want to wait weeks and weeks to do.
No, but I think I would hope the proclamation would be the steps we will take to make sure it doesn't happen again.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Okay, the last item on our agenda is one that comes to us from the Baltimore Metropolitan Council. The Baltimore Metropolitan Council does a major review of the fair housing actions and the fair housing activities of governmental units in the state of Maryland, which have responsibility for the enforcement of fair housing ordinances and laws. And this commission is included in that. And it's a pretty heavy report, which basically looks at the desired goals and actions of each governmental unit in terms of what they're doing in the area of fair housing. The last report was received in it was 5 years ago. It was a report issued in 2020, and now they're doing one for 2025. And within sometime this month, or I think it's actually early December, actually is when they're going to do it. They're going to put together a draft and hold a public hearing on that draft. And it's a report that we're going to be in. And they have responsibility for, if you've read through the document which I sent around, you'll see it's incredibly detailed. And the document you received was just what was in the 2020 plan for the city of Annapolis. That's all I sent you. Didn't send it. I don't have the documents that would relate to every other governmental unit in the state. But I would want to focus our attention on those areas where they cited the Human Relations Commission would be responsible for them. We can accept them as is, we can rewrite them, but it's our call. And we want to make sure that those sections that relate to the commission are addressed. There are other things that are addressed to other entities in the city, as you'll see if you've read through the document. We don't have to worry about that. That's not our jurisdiction, it's not our responsibility. But very specifically, there's just a few things here that I'm going to comment on, and then the commission needs to make a decision on it. There is an overall goal, and the overall goal is to improve the public's knowledge and awareness of the Federal Fair Housing Act and related laws, regulations, and requirements to affirmatively further fair housing in the city. That's just an overall goal statement. That's there. The issues related to that are a need to educate members of the community concerning their rights and responsibilities under the Fair Housing Act, and to raise awareness, especially for low-income households. The responsible parties are the Human Relations Commission and the Department of Human Resources. The goal is to continue to make available and distribute literature and informational materials in English and Spanish concerning fair housing issues and individuals' rights and landlords' responsibilities to affirmatively further fair housing. The issues that are involved are lack of education and increasing awareness regarding fair housing, lack of outreach to protected classes, and referral for assistance. The responsible parties are the Human Relations Commission, the Department of Human Resources, and the Community Development Division. And the metrics to be applied are to devise or to basically create a fair housing handbook and comprehensive, easy to reach guide with information about laws, fair housing practices, a list of contacts for information and filing complaints to distribute widely, including through agencies that serve low income and protected classes, to create a fair housing speakers bureau, to conduct outreach with organizations serving protected classes and low income individuals. That was all out of the report in 2020, which I shared with you. Okay, we can reduce this to just a couple things that I would say. I think most of the general statements supporting fair housing is something that we don't really need to fool with. Although if you don't agree, please say so. But there are two specific actions that they would want the commission, or at least the commission said in the 2020 report that it would undertake. The first is the creation of a fair housing handbook, which would be a comprehensive compendium on everything doing with fair housing. It would be used by the agencies within the city. This idea came not from the commission, but rather came from an employee of the Office of Community Development, which is, I believe, was a section of the Office of Zoning and Planning. And this was Teresa Wellman. And she had agreed that she would take major responsibility for this. But that never really occurred. Part of the reason was some health issues with her. The fact that this report was released right as COVID hit. And we never actually completed, or even started for that matter, this fair housing handbook. The commission allowed it to go in. There wasn't a whole lot of enthusiasm for it, is my recollection. My personal view is that the commission has two brochures that are pretty darn comprehensive for relaying information about fair housing. I'm not sure we need to reinvent the wheel by creating this handbook. But that's just my opinion. We can take it out of the 2025 plan. We can take it out of the 2025 plan if you want to. But the other thing that we said we would do is the creation of a speakers bureau, which would basically be designed to have members of the commission, along with the literature, to go to the various organizations and groups within the city to share with them information that they would hopefully find helpful about fair housing. That was not undertaken simply because it coincided with COVID. It was right in the middle of COVID. And so there was no formal action taken on that. But I think that would be a good idea. It'd be a good project for the commission. We could meet with the residents' councils of the HACA properties. We could meet with a variety of organizations that Linda said earlier when we were talking about the ways that we might want to contact with important groups and other organizations in the city. So that's what I see coming out of this report for the Human Relations Commission. Things that I think would be most useful. I think keeping in the report a plan to do a speakers bureau, except that it would be implemented sometime in the next few years or something like that. We could simply write in a specific date when this would be done, or we could do it now. I'm not as keen on undertaking a creation of a handbook. But I'm certainly open if commissioners have other thoughts about it. And then there are other things that could be added to this. Whatever the City of Annapolis Human Relations Commission wants to include, and we have the support of the Office of Human Resources, we can pretty much put into this document. So I'm going to stop there. I'm just going to give folks an opportunity to say what their thoughts are on this. And I've taken responsibility for sort of coordinating this for Annapolis in those areas that involves the commission. I'm part of a very large steering committee, which has been meeting every quarter or so to discuss it. I can tell you that they do plan to have a public hearing in mid-December on this. And so this is something that I really need to bring back to Dan Pontius of the Baltimore Metropolitan Council and say, okay, for Annapolis, this is what we want in the report. And he'll put it in.
Chairman Keller, my apologies. I'm gonna have to drop. I have to go and pick my son up from practice.
Well, thank you for joining us this evening,
No
Lakeisha.
worries. Thank you, everyone. Have a good one.
Thank you.
So I listened to what you talked about, Mike, and I find it ironic that we're supposed to be training on fair housing, and we earlier in the meeting this evening realized that we're still not really clear on what it all means. And I'm just kind of frustrated with us at this point because I feel like we have these conversations again and again, and I don't necessarily know that we're making progress here. So yeah, I think we should be trained on this. I think we need to get training on what is the Fair Housing Act. I would love for you to ask this organization if they would do training with all of the groups that they're working with first, and then have us make our plans. Because at this point, I don't feel like I want to be involved in developing anything until I'm really clear as to what it is we're supposed to be doing here. And I got to say again, I'm just really frustrated that we don't seem to know this at this point. I've been on this commission for 2.5 years, and I'm still trying to figure out what is our role when it comes to fair housing. Do we actually have power? Are people listening to us? Because the fact that you wrote a letter back in the spring to the city council, to the mayor, and did not get one response, to me says a lot. It means that they are not listening to us. And just one other thing about the earlier bicycle incident. So I'm frustrated about that too, because it's been on our call for the past couple of calls. And if you read the report, which I did read it back in October, the reporting officer basically said, I suggest we just dismiss this because I have not been able to find any information on the suspect. So I believe it was dismissed. And the fact that we continue to talk about it when the mayor did address it, he addressed it in a timely manner. It's 5 months later and we're still talking about it. And I don't really understand what it is we want done differently. Again, I'm just frustrated this evening because I am canvassing tomorrow, and I'm just not feeling like we're making progress here.
Let me respond in part, Mike. First off, I did find my October 18th memo back to Mike and others. but in looking at the email, I never got a copy of the report itself from the police. Apparently, Mike, Linda, Jay, and Josh got it in an earlier email, which was part of that. So if somebody could forward me, I would like to see that report itself. And to you, Linda, Will indicated that they have developed a plan to make this not happen again. I was looking forward to hearing either tonight or whenever we can get from him how we can participate in that plan. And I think I'm hopeful that that would be a meaningful step.
Okay, well, thanks for sharing that because I didn't understand that at all.
We
were asking him for a summary of what we already knew again.
I thank Claudia for getting the report. Disappointed the chief did not respond to my previous email. We'll follow up with Will, but in looking at there's no attachment that I got from it. Mike, if you could resend me or Claudia could resend me that report, and I will take it up with Will this week.
I'll just send it to you.
Great. Thanks. But it does. I mean, it begs the question. I mean, if we're going to be training on a brochure or possible brochure for fair housing, is the pattern of health and safety violations in public and subsidized housing within our jurisdiction? Mike, I really would suggest you might want to reconsider and ask for a legal opinion from the city as to what the authority of the commission is as it relates to fair housing for protected classes on health and safety violations, which I think would move the ball forward a little.
I'm not sure what it is that you didn't hear Carrie talk about those. She works for a law.
No, she only said that for protected classes, and the question is his income source, and she says the source is, but in the qualification for low income housing, I would hope that would make somebody be in a protected class. And if there's a pattern of health and safety violations, it would seem to me that we have a need to understand whether we can take action on that.
Well, okay, here's the question that comes down as far as the Baltimore Metropolitan Council is concerned. If we, again, I don't really see a need to put together a full packet, that's a thick, large document on fair housing that we will have to sit down with some source information. We may have to ask for additional training on that. But I think to have I think the guides to fair housing that we already have prepared, they're updated guides, provide a really good overview as to what constitutes fair housing violation and who to go to in the event of a person wanting assistance. I don't think we really need to engage in a massive undertaking of effort on this. I think we can put together a speakers bureau, and the speakers bureau would be those who wish to go out and talk with a variety of community groups about what we do in the area of fair housing. At least that's what I think. I mean,
but Mike, our authority seems to be clear on access to fair housing. It does not seem to be clear on conditions of fair housing. And I know I would benefit from getting a legal opinion as to what we can do about it, because the pattern of unsafe and unhealthy conditions in public housing has been going on for decades, I believe, and want to find out if we have a role we could consider pursuing.
Well, like Linda, I mean, I heard pretty clearly what Carrie Berger told us. But
it seemed to be that only if the issue was race or source of income, can there be any jurisdiction for the commission under the Fair Housing Code?
No,
Not,
no,
but
that's
not a
not true.
pattern of health and safety violations.
Again, I really don't want to have to engage in another discussion of this.
Okay.
I thought that we pretty much went over it. I think the question, and I need guidance on this because I'm the one who's dealing with the Baltimore Metropolitan Council on this. And I want to make sure that when that report comes out and it goes everywhere in the state, that people don't look at it and say, well, who agreed to this? So, and these decisions are going to be made pretty darn soon. They're moving along on it. So I think what I need is a sense of guidance from commissioners as to what we will undertake as part of this plan, whether what is in the 2020 report, whether we just simply say that this can be continued, or changed in some form or fashion.
Mike, was the handbook supposed to be for the everyday citizen that
Nope.
that was supposed to
Nope.
be made, or for, okay,
It was designed to be for agencies within the city. It was an
Okay.
internal document. It was not supposed to be
Gotcha.
used for everything. That's why we've got the brochures.
Right, okay. I mean, I agree to your thought about not necessarily recreating the wheel, but I only agree to that if somehow we can get some overall training on the Fair Housing Act. I feel like there needs to be a refresh, or maybe just helping us see ourselves and what is going on today and how it applies to our commission. And then rather than putting together a handbook, I would recommend we put together a slide presentation, that doesn't have to be huge, but that's what could be used to present to groups, as well as it could be provided to internal city organizations too.
That's a great suggestion, Linda. That really is a great suggestion. And in terms of the training part of it, I can send a message to Dan Pontius and basically say that commissioners would benefit from having some type of a training dealing with fair housing. And if anyone's able to pull that, I suspect that he would be able to pull something together that would be very, very informative of it. He'd probably do something. He's really good with Zoom technology, and so we could include that in the plan too. We could simply say that one of the things we want is to have a presentation and training on fair housing under the what constitutes in the Fair Housing Act of 1968, and we can keep it open to commissioners. Is that something that you think would be valuable, Linda?
And we could also invite other, like you said, potentially we could invite some of the resident councils or the other housing, city housing committee or commission. I can't remember who they are that reports to Dewan and Brooks's group. So yes, I agree with that. I definitely would like to see training, and maybe it's a regular thing, right? If we're supposed to be growing and bringing in new commissioners, then we would probably need it to be regular, or we film it in Zoom and we have it as a resource, a training resource when new commissioners step on.
Okay, I think that sounds good. And I do like also the idea of doing, once we feel sufficiently trained, and there's no timeline with this. We can, do it as we're able, to have something in which we would inform the various groups around the city, including, the ones that you've you and others have mentioned this evening. And, you know, just have the proverbial dog and pony show on these things. I think it would be very, very valuable for the commission to spearhead that. So I think are there other commissioners that have views on this specifically with regard to it in terms of asking the Baltimore Metropolitan Council for assistance in training and, you know, the presentation of a slideshow that we could use, and then, you know, from then move forward to doing presentations around the city of Annapolis to audiences that ought to know and ought to be informed about what their rights are under the Federal Fair Housing Act of 1968. Does that sound good, Linda?
Yeah, I mean, if it works for everybody else.
Okay, other thoughts about this? Joshua, Chuck?
I agree, although I think it really ought to be clear what we can do about it. What, you know, there are certain areas of our Fair Housing Authority are clear and certain areas are not.
Okay. Well, we can ask for that as part of the training program.
That'd be great.
Jay, do you have any thoughts about this?
No, I don't. You know, I somewhat agree with what Commissioner Monday has expressed here, so I don't have anything to add.
Okay. Commissioner Hatch.
Yeah, I actually agree with Commissioner Monday as well. I think that her suggestions here, her recommendations are clear and in line with what we need at this time, at this juncture. Although I do understand Chuck's frustration as well.
Yeah, well, going back, I guess, just very briefly to what Chuck has raised, and I'd really like to thank Carrie Berger from the Office of Law for providing us with this, a very quick assessment as to what the commission might be able to do here. Again, it's my reading that in order for the commission to exercise its full responsibilities under the city's fair housing ordinance, we would have to show, in the case of a thing that we've discussed this evening, we would have to show that there was a connection between the person's status under the protective category,
right, and
the circumstances that they face. In other words, that just as an example, an individual was living in a place that had lots of mold, and you couldn't get them to change it. He would have to, and he felt that this was happening because of his race or her race, or because of whatever the other protected categories were. That there was a connection between the two of them, and I think that probably is what we would need to do to use the city's fair housing ordinance to make a case against the landlord, that they deliberately discriminated against them in health and safety conditions based on one of the many protected classifications, not just race. and not just source of income. But you'd have to make that connection. I can remember the one case that the city commission got that and this is before, I know this is before you joined us. I'm trying to think around. I don't think anybody here was on the commission then when we had the case of an individual who was insisting that she could bring a dog into an apartment complex in the city. And that apartment complex said, no, we don't accept pets. And she said, this isn't a pet, this is an emotional support animal. And so that case came before the commission because the challenge by her was we were discriminating. There was discrimination against her in not allowing her to proceed with renting the property because they would not accept an emotional support animal. And she tied that directly to the city code and said it was a discrimination, based on that there was an unequal and unfair imposition here. And so that was the one case I can remember. And it went to a public hearing. And but we haven't had anything else that went to a full public hearing. We've had a number of cases that were settled by mediation. And all of those mostly dealt with the source of income situation in which individual realtors refused to accept housing vouchers to individuals. And they were usually was a situation in which there was a tie to a protected class. And all those cases were settled by mediation. So I think that what we should do in this case is certainly, Chuck, the issues that you're bringing up about the importance that we get knowledge about what we actually can do under the law. I think that needs to be addressed in the training program, and we can do it. But I think that Carrie Berger did a good job in relating that to us this evening.
Well, Mike, I won't belabor it further, but the facts seem to be that the cause of the inaction on health and safety is not the race, but the availability of funds, even though it has a disproportionate effect on people of protected classes.
Yeah.
I mean, the history part of it. The reason that there is discrimination on housing and the rest, and HACA and the other subsidized housing are part of that. And so, yeah, I continue to, what are the available limits if we want to do something to help this in the law? Based on the history and the impact on protected classes.
Okay. Okay. Are there any, we've reached the end of the agenda. Are there any other items to be brought before the commission this evening? If not, I would just like to thank everyone for joining us. We'll follow up on all of these matters, and we'll get back to folks about any other upcoming things that would relate to the work of the commission. But my thanks to each of you, and also wish you a happy Thanksgiving, which is coming up in a few weeks, and urge everybody to be safe and be well.
And vote. Thanks, Mike.
And